Of the many ground pounders of World War II, many know not the plane that brought fear and terror into the eyes of the Axis before the introduction of aircraft like the Peshka and Mosquito. That plane, now rare in today's world, was the A-20 Havoc. Born out of a previously failed design proposal and re-engineered by Ed Heinemann working at Douglas Aircraft Company, the Model 7B, as it was known internally, was first flown in October of 1938 at an airshow showcasing the current and possibly new planes of the U.S. Army Air Corps. At this airshow for the unveiling of Douglas's new aircraft was the French Purchasing Commission, who were looking to reinforce their aircraft with American-built planes, and had their eyes drawn to Douglas's new product. France would approach Douglas discreetly to ask about the new plane, as due to America's isolationist stance, they couldn't publicly show interest, and indeed them being there in the first place was already a risky move. But, after some talks and collaborative design, France was able to successfully bargain with both the US government and Douglas to purchase the new plane and introduce it into their Air Force. The newly named DB-7, standing for Douglas Bomber Model No. 7, would then enter production for the French Air Force in October of 1939, and actually be introduced into service after November of 1939, once America passed the Cash and Carry Act. Just in time, too, for in September of 1939, France had declared war on Germany after invaded Poland, and in October of 1939, Poland had fallen to the combined might of Germany and the USSR, who at the time were working together under the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. As it stood in its initial design, the A-20 was a no-frills twin-engine medium bomber, focusing on an uncompromised core performance that balanced respectable speed, range, and payload capacity with a surprising amount of maneuverability, ease of maintenance, and ease of construction, all facets that would serve it well in the war to come. With the German invasion of France in early 1940, the A-20 would have the courtesy of being among the first few American aircraft to participate in World War II. Flying in a conventional medium bomber role, it performed admirably with the French even despite its short service due to the quick fall of France at the hands of the German war machine. French A-20s were then either flown to Britain to integrate into the RAF, or repainted to fly for the new Vichy French government, who would actually use the type briefly in Operation Torch against the invading Allies, giving the A-20 the very unique title of being an American-built aircraft fighting against the Allies without being captured in the traditional sense. In RAF service, A-20s would serve primarily as a low-level strike bomber, something that the type was found to be uniquely capable in and was cause for one of its two nicknames, the Havoc. It would also be retrofitted in multiple attempts to try and act as a heavy night fighter during the Blitz, something that, again, it found itself to be surprisingly capable at, being one of the few aircraft then at the time able to carry its own radar set, as these were the days before the venerable Beaufighter. In regards to Britain's colonies, however, the Havoc was actually not used that much, with the exception of Australia, who gathered a small collection of DB-7s that were initially bound for the East Indies, after they fell to Japan. Australia would make good use of the Boston, the other nickname given to it by the RAF, against Japan, using it for anti-shipping duties and, notably, participating in the Battle of the Bismarck Sea. As America geared up more and more into supplying the Allies before eventually joining World War II, A-20s would also be sent via Lend-Lease to the USSR, in extreme quantities. So much so that the USSR, in actions reminiscent of the Eurocobra, would order the vast majority of the A-20's production run, ending up with more in service than even the USA. Soviet A-20s performed similar low-level strikes as the RAF ones did. However, their performance was marked by exceptionally high casualty rates due to the brutality of the Eastern Air War. Soviet opinions of the A-20, however, were generally positive, with many pilots seeing it as an overgrown fighter with bomber-like attributes, and using it successfully in a few scuffles against similar heavy fighters and tactical bombers of the Luftwaffe. This habit of wielding the twin-engine bomber like a fighter also led the Havoc to another favorite mission type, strafing truck and vehicle columns. This mission profile in fact became so popular that Douglas took notice of it and started designs for a new variant better suited to this kind of role, the A-20G. The A-20G would arrive in early 1943 with several notable features. Among the most drastic was the introduction of a powered twin 50 cal turret in the rear of the aircraft in place of the open single mount, and the replacement of the bombardier nose with a solid one that housed 6 50 caliber machine guns suitable for strafing runs, though would be used to bring down other twin-engine aircraft with alarming regularity. They would also be supplied with more powerful Pratt & Whitney engines, which allowed the new version better performance even despite the extra weight of the new guns. The A-20G would be the most popular variant of the type and would be the most produced version of the plane. As America entered World War II, it too would use the Havoc in both Europe against Germany and the Pacific against the Japanese. Havocs out of New Guinea preyed upon Japanese shipping, while those out of Europe would start their long and somewhat unglamorous career striking the Germans in the Netherlands. Back in the Pacific, however, the Havocs enjoyed effectively free game on Japanese targets, everything from transport ships to truck convoys to ports and even the occasional airfield. Their support for the Marines and the Navy in disrupting the Japanese supply lines would be part of the key to the US's victory in this section of the world. The A-20 service would continue for a few short years after World War II, as it would retire in 1949. Despite its importance, its vast use, and its love from its pilots, very few would be preserved for posterity's sake, and none would be used in Korea, though not for the reason you're thinking of. For the Havoc had a younger brother born out of the lessons learned from its wartime use and built with the much more capable industry of the U.S. military-industrial complex now at its fingertips. Serving at the tail end of World War II, it flew with distinction in Korea, was chosen by the CIA for the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, and even survived long enough for a Special Operations Squadron to use it during Operation Shed-Light in 1969 during Vietnam. This was the A-26 Invader, and oh boy, does it have a story. One that we shall explore in depth outside of the usual 5-minute standard next time.